You won't believe what happened to this unassuming janitor on Flight 287, or why the moment the pilot stepped out of the cockpit, the entire first-class cabin fell into a silence so deep you could hear a heartbeat. Stick with me to the end of this story, because it's a powerful reminder that heroes walk among us, often in the most unexpected places. And if this story touches your heart, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button for more real-life tales of courage and kindness. The air in the first-class cabin of Global Express Flight 287 was a perfumed mix of wealth and quiet entitlement. Leather seats sighed with the weight of their occupants, and the soft clink of champagne flutes was the only music. Into this rarefied atmosphere stepped Leo, clutching the hand of his 5-year-old daughter, Chloe. He looked out of place, his posture slightly stooped, his hands, though scrubbed clean, bearing the telltale roughness of a man who worked with them for a living. He wore his one good suit, a slightly frayed navy blue, but his eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held a gentle warmth as he looked down at his daughter. They weren't supposed to be here. This was a cruel twist of fate, or perhaps a small, delayed act of cosmic kindness. A last-minute airline system glitch had overbooked economy, and in a stroke of bewildering luck, Leo and Chloe had been bumped up. For Chloe, who had spent the last year watching her father work 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads after her mother's passing, it was a magical adventure. Her wide eyes took in the spacious seats, the individual screens, the soft blankets. "Daddy, are we rich now?" she'd whispered, her voice full of awe. Leo's heart had ached with a bittersweet joy. "Just for today, sweet pea. Just for today." Their peace was shattered by a voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Excuse me. There must be some mistake." A woman in her 50s, draped in silk and a sense of immense importance, was glaring at them from across the aisle. Her name was Eleanor Vance, and she was a frequent flyer who knew the value of her status. She had already flagged down a flight attendant, a young man named Ben who was trying his best to maintain a professional smile. "These seats are for first-class passengers," Eleanor stated, not bothering to lower her voice. She gestured vaguely in Leo's direction. "I can smell the disinfectant from here. He's clearly part of the ground crew who's wandered into the wrong section. This is completely unacceptable." Ben leaned down, his voice placating. "Sir, may I see your boarding passes again?" Leo's face flushed a deep, humiliated red. He fumbled in his pocket and produced the passes, the upgraded, stamped clear as day. "The gate agent gave us these," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "We're supposed to be here." Eleanor scoffed. "Probably a computer error. Or perhaps he knows someone. These things happen when standards are lowered." The confrontation drew stares. Whispers slithered through the cabin. Chloe, sensing the tension, shrunk into her father's side, her small hand gripping his. Leo's jaw tightened. He was used to being invisible, to people looking through him as he emptied trash bins and mopped floors. But to have his daughter subjected to this, on what was supposed to be a special trip to see her grandparents for the first time since the funeral, it ignited a slow, cold fire in his gut. Ben, under the withering gaze of Eleanor and the uncomfortable attention of the other passengers, made a fateful decision. Pressure from a high-status passenger could make his job difficult. "Sir," he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy, "I'm so sorry for the confusion, but I'm going to have to ask you to return to the main cabin. We'll find you a seat there." "But," the gate agent said, Leo's protest died in his throat. He saw the look in Ben's eyes, not malice, but a cowardly desire for the path of least resistance. Arguing would only upset Chloe more. The magic of the upgrade had evaporated, replaced by the familiar, bitter taste of being less than. "Come on, Chloe," he murmured, his voice thick. He began gathering their few belongings, a coloring book, a worn stuffed rabbit named Binky. Just as they stood, the cockpit door hissed open. Captain Mark Rourke, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a captain's crisp authority and a gaze that missed nothing, stepped out to stretch his legs before their long transatlantic flight. His eyes casually scanned the cabin, a habitual check on his domain. They passed over the scene of the quiet commotion, then snapped back, freezing on Leo. The change in the pilot was instantaneous and profound. The casual authority drained from his face, replaced by a look of stunned recognition, then something deeper, a profound, almost reverent respect. His eyes were locked not on Leo's face, but on his forearm. As Leo had reached for Binky, his suit jacket sleeve had ridden up, revealing the lower part of a tattoo. It was an eagle, a trident, and a flintlock pistol. The SEAL insignia. Captain Rourke, a former Marine Corps aviator himself, knew that tattoo. He knew what it represented: the years of brutal training, the unimaginable sacrifices, the silent, unheralded services rendered in the darkest corners of the world. He knew the men who bore it were a breed apart. He strode down the aisle, his presence causing a hush to fall. He completely ignored the flustered flight attendant and the smugly satisfied Eleanor Vance. He stopped directly in front of Leo, who was now trying to shield his crying daughter from the entire ordeal. "Petty officer," Captain Rourke said, his voice low but carrying through the silent cabin. It wasn't a question. Leo looked up, startled. For a fleeting second, the gentle janitor was gone, and in his place was a man with eyes of flint, a man who had seen things and made decisions that would haunt most people forever. Then, just as quickly, it was gone, and he was just a tired dad again. He gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Rourke's gaze then fell to Chloe, who was hiding behind her father's leg. His stern expression melted into one of gentle warmth. "And who is this brave young lady?" This is my daughter, Chloe," Leo said, his voice hoarse. Captain Rourke knelt down, bringing himself to her eye level. "Well, Chloe, it seems there's been a big misunderstanding. You and your father are not just first-class passengers. You are my personal guests of honor in this cabin." He stood up and turned to Ben, whose face had gone pale. "Flight attendant, these two will be remaining in their seats. In fact," he continued, his voice rising so the entire cabin could hear, "if anyone has a problem with a United States Navy SEAL and his daughter enjoying the comforts of first class, they are more than welcome to disembark and discuss their grievance with me personally on the tarmac." The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Eleanor Vance seemed to have shrunk 2 sizes in her seat, desperately trying to avoid eye contact with anyone. The captain didn't stop there. He personally helped Leo and Chloe get resettled. He had the chief flight attendant bring them a special meal. He spent a few minutes talking quietly with Leo, a conversation of shared nods and unspoken understanding between two brothers in arms. The story tumbled out in quiet fragments between them: Leo's years of service, the IED that ended his career not with a bang, but with a slow burning injury, the death of his wife to a sudden illness, his struggle to be both mother and father while working as a school janitor to make ends meet. For the rest of the flight, the atmosphere in first class was different. The other passengers, shamed and humbled, went out of their way to be kind. A businessman offered Chloe his extra headphones. An elderly woman smiled warmly at Leo. The privilege that had once felt exclusive now felt unearned. When the plane landed, Captain Rourke made an unprecedented announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Before you disembark, I ask that you remain seated for a moment. We have a true American hero on board with us today. It was the honor of my career to have him on my flight. Please join me in showing our gratitude." As Leo, holding a sleeping Chloe in his arms, walked down the aisle, the entire first-class cabin, led by a now deeply contrite Ben, erupted in not just applause but a standing ovation. Eleanor Vance, to her credit, offered a small, ashamed nod. Leo didn't do it for the applause. He did it all for the small, sleeping girl in his arms. He was a SEAL, a janitor, a widower, but above all, he was a father. The world might try to force him into a smaller box, to judge him by his cover, but his strength, his character, and his love for his daughter were first class, no matter where he sat. This story is a testament to the fact that you never know a person's story by their appearance. The quiet man cleaning the floors might have a history of breathtaking courage. So the next time you see someone the world has rendered invisible, remember Leo. Remember that true strength is often silent, and the greatest heroes don't wear capes, they wear work boots, or in this case, a slightly frayed suit on the flight of a lifetime. If this story of resilience and unexpected respect moved you, show us some love with a like, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that prove there is still so much good in the world.